This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and information shared are not intended to replace professional advice or opinions. Always consult a qualified expert for your specific needs or concerns. Thank you for listening. Hi, welcome to another episode of We Time Convo. I'm Liza and
Debbie, and today we've got a fascinating topic: longevity and biological age testing.
From groundbreaking research in genetics to new tests that promise to give us a glimpse into our biological age, we are on the verge of understanding not just how long we live, but how well we age.
And we're not doing this alone. We have a very special guest joining us today, Hylan.
Well, hello, good morning. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I am well. I'm a little slow this morning.
Yeah, I know. We were having a lot of fun last night at our holiday party.
Yeah, our annual holiday party, right?
Yeah, that's always so much fun.
It is. And I love seeing the growth of how we've just continued to stay in touch and be a part of each other's lives.
I love that we do this every year. Lots of fun. But excuse my voice. I'm getting over being really sick. I had the flu, as you know, so I might sound a little different today.
Yes.
It's cold and flu season, so everybody...
Well, I still have my lingering cough.
How long have you had that cough?
Probably like 4 weeks now. Probably like a month.
Well,
I'll probably have another month to go.
Well, we'll leave that behind in 2024.
Hopefully.
Everyone in the house is sick. Everyone's getting over stuff. So you guys wash your hands.
Yes.
Because it's out there. Anyways, we have a special return life coach, our unofficial life coach here, Hylan.
Hello.
Hi, Hylan. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get started on our very interesting topic, give us an update. How have you been since the last time you've been here? How long? It's been a few months, right?
And I think the last time we were here was September.
Yeah,
things have been good. Things are going good with work and life and, my little business I'm building. So things are good.
Nice.
Can you believe how quickly September to now is?
Yeah.
Time goes by so fast.
It does. It's crazy.
And before you know it, we're looking into a new year.
This whole year's been fast.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. I can't wait for our update. So today's episode, we are talking about, and I don't know a lot of this, I don't know much, or I don't think I know anything about this. So that's why we have Hylan here, because she knows more than I do. We are going to be talking about
longevity and biological age testing.
Yes. Okay. So Hylan, what exactly is biological age and how is it different from chronological age?
So biological age is the age in which your body is actually aging in terms of cell breakdown, DNA mutation, and things like that, versus chronological age, which is what is measured by your birthday and years and date. So that's chronological age. But yeah, biological age is basically a test in which you test basically how your body is aging over time, like how well it is coping with the oxidation process and things like that of your environment and your cell turnover, etc.
So is this just as a physical point, or is this also mentally? You can chronologically be 50, but mentally and emotionally you act like you're in your 20s. Does that also count as being biological age or no?
I think those are all factors in which can impact your biological age, but your biological age is not tested with those factors. It's tested on the DNA level.
Got it. And you did take one of these tests, right?
Yeah, I took the test and I'm chronologically 37, but I got tested as 22 and a half.
I can tell you, I have not gotten officially tested, but if you go to your dentist and they take a look at your teeth, they can actually give you an estimate of based on your teeth, what your age is.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. And then the other thing too is there's this app where you get on a scale and it takes your weight and it takes all these other measurements of where you're at with your fat and muscle and it will estimate kind of where you are in aging.
Yeah.
And I can tell you on both, I'm actually older than what I am.
Yeah. I've actually gotten that tested too, actually. So accurate? Yeah, I'm big on the whole biological and just fitness and health stuff. And
Hylan, how did you start getting into this? What made you say like, hey, I'm going to take this biological age test?
Yeah, so I've always been into health, right? I think last episode we talked about like my parents' health, and I think that has triggered this passion in myself like at an early age. So I think I also kind of mentioned the fact that I had asthma, and then also overcoming asthma like started that journey into me delving into like, oh wow, I can really change my physical like fate, in this world, right? Like by lifestyle, by training, by just this gradual like improvement of my health in many different ways. I think I also mentioned I started like taking vitamins during that time as well. And so I started noticing like a big, huge difference taking vitamins and then also, starting to run and then overcoming my asthma. And so that kind of like set me off on this path where I was like, wow, like all of these little things completely changed the way like I operate in the world in terms of like my stamina, my ability to focus on schoolwork, my ability to run and things like that. And then also like changes in my skin and just like pretty much everything. So that kind of like set off that. And then throughout the years, now that I'm 37, throughout the years, I've been just able to kind of like I kind of mentioned last time is maintain some of those habits and like in terms of physical fitness, nutrition, watching what I eat. And then also I consistently also read, right? I also mentioned that last time. And I've read a lot of books on health and nutrition. And the more I learn, the more I realize I'm like, wow, this is like amazing. And when I was 18 and I was taking like, I had like the pill organizer, all my friends was like, you're crazy to be taking this many pills every single day. But that I know that like from reading, and it's like common knowledge now that most of our foods don't provide the same level of nutrients as it used to, right? Back in the days with like just like mass production of like farming and things like that. So I understood that at like 18. And this habit that I've had has now been over like 18 years. Right. 18 or 19 years. And so, like I heard about this service through a doctor that I've been following for also years. His name is Dr. Hylan. He's like a functional medicine doctor. He has like a ton of followers on YouTube. And so I've always like followed his stuff, and his philosophy in terms of like health and science behind it is all centered around food and nutrition, which I think is highly important. And I've seen it in my own body and my own life. And so he came out with this service called Function Health, where it provided testing of over 500 biomarkers or like a couple hundred biomarkers. And I did that. And then along with that,
what are biomarkers?
Biomarkers are basically just like, it's just a fancy way to just like test like different things in your blood. Like everything from vitamins to your lipid levels to like cholesterol to even like inflammation and like hormones and things like that. Basically anything that you can test in your blood is a biomarker. Okay. So that test included actually the biological age test, which there are a lot of out there, but it tests using the best one out there, the most reliable, which is called the DNA M pheno age test, and that's what I did.
Okay, and so in doing this, is it like well, I have a couple of questions. Is it something that you go into a doctor's office for, or you order online and you can take it at home? Or then is there does your insurance cover it? Is there a cost? And then how soon do you get the results back?
Yeah, so the test is actually a blood test. Okay. And this whole Function Health is, again, it's like doctor-led. It uses basically, like the main labs across the nation. So when I did the test, it was through Quest Labs, but I ordered it through the service. So, like any business, right, they have like contracts with these labs. They sell it as a service, but it's a package deal basically in terms of like, you get all these tests in like one flat fee, right? And then once the test is ordered, they schedule it with the Quest Labs for you. You go in there and schedule it in terms of picking out a date. And then you just go to Quest. I went to Quest and then just got my blood test done.
Okay. And then they obviously submit it, send it, and then you get your results back. So it's pretty easy, simple process if you decide that this is what, you want to do. Now, my one other question that I had was, is this, like covered by insurance? Or generally you probably have to pay out of pocket?
Yeah. So what I did for this service, I don't think it's covered by insurance yet because, like any business, you have to go through all the certification, like the qualification process for them to accept insurance, right? I don't think they accept insurance yet. I just did it out of pocket, like super early. I think Function Health probably launched like last year or like earlier this year. So I was kind of like one of the early adopters of the service.
Is it fairly reasonable or expensive service? What would you say?
So it's $500, I believe, for the test, but you can add on a bunch of things
to it, so it can actually increase.
Yeah,
but
so I added on a bunch of stuff, and
so
mine
like
is
baseline is like $500.
Yeah. Mine ended up being like I think over $1,000. But I'm very passionate about health.
Yes. Yeah. Now, is this something that you talk to your doctor about first, like to kind of get some thoughts on from your doctor, or it's just?
So this service, like I said, is medical led, right? So it's actually basically developed partly by Dr. Hylan. And then part of the service is a team of doctors looking at your results and then providing you kind of a summary of your
what
test results and also within the different tests they use also of course technology, right, to also then as results come in, this is like where to tell you this is where you are, like this is why, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds really interesting. I think for me, when I think about this, like it definitely sounds interesting because it's good to kind of, it's snapshot, right, of where you're at. But like the other thought to me is like, there's a commitment to it, right? Because once you have these results, it's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? Right? Because, and it sounds like can you actually change your biological age? Because like, let's say you're older, right? And then obviously you go, whoa, this is, I want to live a little longer, quote, quote. And then you change your habits and then you can take the test again. Yeah. And it can actually show now that you've
So
decreased.
Have you heard of Brian Johnson?
No.
So Brian Johnson's like the billionaire that started Venmo and sold it off to PayPal. And so now that he's out of that, he's basically using his billions of dollars to try to reverse his age. Because his whole thing was that he kind of ran himself to the ground, building a business. And now that he has money, he wants to focus on his health. And so that's what he's been doing is he's actually tracking his ability to reverse his age. And one of the biological age tests that he actually does to himself is also the test that I've done. He actually, in his testing of like his biological age, he uses like the average of 5 different biological age tests. But here's the kicker. So he's been spending like millions on this, right? So across the 5, the DNA pheno age test has been the most consistent despite his effort, meaning it hasn't really changed.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, it barely changed. I think it probably changed by like a decimal point with him, but across the other ones, he has realized some significant change. But here's what I also want to encourage people to think about is that chronologically, you're always chronologically aging, right? What you can do though, even if you can't reverse your age, is to stop the aging process. Kind of like how I started or slow it down really, really good, right? Like kind of like how I'm now biologically 22 and a half, which to me sounds ridiculous because like, how can you be any younger than 22? Because I think biologically you mature around that age, right? Yeah. So I personally think that regardless, it's always good to start that process like as soon as you can, so that one, because age is associated with a lot of diseases, age is the most correlated with like diseases like diabetes, cancer, heart issues, and things like that.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson, is that the same guy that you saw at the conference, Irene? Doesn't he like measure his boners and stuff like that, or erections?
Yeah, he measures everything. So
But
he's
like, how does that have to do with like biological? Is it just, like, stamina?
Your biological age or like just aging in general affects your hormones. It affects your ability, your energy level. It affects your ability to repair your body to repair itself. So all of these things, like I said, are indicators of like aging, right? And then as again, like you age, your body becomes less efficient in terms of how it should function.
Yeah, I actually have an experience where if you're younger and you're diagnosed with something, you have a better chance of getting better or treating it, improving, versus if you got sick at an older age, the likelihood or your chances of recovering is much less.
That's correct.
That's just in general.
No, that's correct. Yeah, like your rate of survival and repair, your ability to repair itself from any type of disease is less as you age.
Irene, did you get anything out of that conference that you went? The last 30 minutes that you were able to catch? Like, tell us about your experience with your Brian. Is it Brian Johnson?
Brian Johnson conference.
I actually saw him up close. Like he looks like he's glowing from the inside.
Does he really?
Yeah.
He
Like,
looks good.
With him, right? Yeah. He's not just doing things internally, but he's also getting a lot of cosmetic treatments as well.
Yes,
You have to kind of differentiate the two, right? You can get a lot of cosmetic treatments. And like I said, there's like the looking young versus the actual, like how your body inside internally is aging, which I think a lot of people get confused by, right? A lot of people do a lot of like surface treatments that make them look really young. But internally, it can only be proven like over time, right? How well you're actually aging based on like really your medical history and like the future.
Was there a lot of people there, Irene?
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was like 30 minutes, so it's like time to go home.
Oh, so you just wanted to see.
I really like Brian Johnson because I was already taking supplements before, and it's so hard to know which ones you really need to take, like especially for age.
I was just going to say that, like, you know, in regards to, we all, like, I knew that you're not going to be able to take all the necessary vitamins, nutrients based on the food that you eat. You can't just take
like a women's one a day?
Well, well, okay. So you already know that you can eat so healthy, but it still will not give you the necessary nutrients that you need. So you need to supplement that with some kind of like vitamins. You're intaking something. But then where I fall off is there's a lot of like sucky vitamins out there. Right. So going back to what you're saying is that you were taking supplements, but then like, how do you distinguish what are good supplements to take versus like these are marketed as good supplements, but they're really not?
You're just wasting money.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So Brian Johnson, as Hylan said, he is already like in a $2 million a year testing and all these supplements that they actually are producing now themselves, because yes, you're right, there are a lot of bad supplements out there. So before, like, he was just releasing his list of supplements online and you can just follow it, and his followers were complaining it's hard to find good ones, so they are actually producing their own and you can have a subscription. So now, like, that's what I follow. It's easier to remember, but for me, I think it's too much sometimes. It's a lot of supplements. So I'm trying to just...
Like when you say a lot, what's a lot? Like 5, 10, 15?
The thing is, like, he will have a powder which have like maybe, I don't know, 10 in it already. And then you have to take, like, let's say, like there's a essential gel capsule once a day, and then there's another capsule for like 3 times a day. And that's on top of like a turmeric one, like a red yeast one. Like, there's a lot.
I have one that I have to take for my thyroid. What's one tiny little pill that I have to take daily?
Yeah.
I can tell you that is a struggle.
Yeah, I take 2, and that is a struggle for me too.
Like, I am not a pill taker at all.
That's why he incorporates it in his there's a powder that you have to take too, and then he even has an olive oil, so you have to take olive oil 2 tablespoons a day. There's cocoa, right? Yeah. And then now he has a matcha tea.
Yeah, so I take about 20 pills a day.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah.
But here's the kicker. Like I said, I've been taking this since I was 18.
So it's like nothing to you.
it's a habit. It's a habit, just like anything, like exercising. Do you want to go exercise? Do you want to go to the gym? You don't. But, you know, once you start building a habit, it becomes second nature to you.
Yeah.
But like I said, people used to be alarmed. My friends used to be alarmed at the amount of vitamins I was taking. But like I said, I read a bunch of these books, right? I've studied it for over a decade now, right? And one of the key factors in terms of understanding what you need is, again, testing. You don't know what you need unless you understand what your body is lacking and how your body is functioning. So I think that's why I was so sold on this service to test myself across all these biomarkers, because like you understand you get the full picture of what your body's lacking, how your body is actually doing, what's serving it, what's not, and then how you can actually correct some of the deficiencies or, biomarkers that are out of range.
Got it. Obviously, taking this all in, is the whole purpose or objective of doing all of this to live longer?
It's really to optimize your health, right? Because aging I'm not trying to look 22, even though that is kind of like a result of like, the things I do. It's just, for me, is like,
I just want to say
good.
you do look really good.
Yeah, but it's just like, feeling good, right? And then living the life you want to live. Like things are demanding in life. Stress is demanding, right? And trying to accomplish your goals in life requires work. And if you don't operate efficiently, like physically, you can't accomplish the things that you want to do. So for me, that's like the biggest is like, how do I, efficiently accomplish my goals? Is, I have to think well, right? I have to be, my body has to feel good. I have to not have to worry about my health. And so, and I, like I said, I was in school, right? And then when I started this journey, and the minute I started like exercising, I started like working out, and I started supplementing, I noticed a huge change in my ability to accomplish my schoolwork, just my energy level, and also my mood. So the whole gamut, right, is like, if you could feel better going through life and be happier and set yourself up for more success, like, why wouldn't you?
Because you're not mentally there yet.
Yeah.
I can
right? Like laziness or whatever you call it. There's always an excuse. Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I personally think that, like I said, if you start to kind of see those changes within you, you're kind of sold on it. Like for me, like I started to I accidentally like stumbled upon it with the whole running thing. And then like my mom forced me to take vitamins and stuff. But when I did it, I was just like, whoa. And then I started changing some of the things I ate. And I was just like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like how did I start feeling so good? And when I actually dropped off, I started feeling like, oh, no, this is like not good. And then my grades started dropping, right? So when you start to kind of see the benefits, you're just like, why would you go back?
I was actually confused before. I was on and off because you would also read or see in the media like, oh, you don't need all these supplements. There's that group, right? You can get all of this from your food. So I would stop and then I would go back again. I would read something about supplements. And actually years ago, I would go through the naturopathic doctors to get those tests, like to see my biomarkers. But like, let's see for you, it shows like, through your test, like there's evidence that it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of why I'm like so passionate about this, because I kind of feel like there's so many naysayers when it comes to nutrition without understanding our environment, right? Yeah. We're no longer like harvesting our food from our own garden, like with soil that's packed with nutrients. And we are no longer like living in a world without pollutants, right? We have a ton of pollutants. Our whole like earth is changing, right? And if we don't adapt, we're just gonna suffer, right? It's like come back to evolutionary theory, right? You have to understand how to adapt to your environment to excel in it, right? And I personally see that as like, okay, in this modern world, because of that, how are you gonna optimize your health, right? With supplements to make up for the lack of nutrients. And like how many of us also like eat and exercise like how we we've been evolved to, you know, in the past, right? Like we don't do that anymore. We don't eat the same. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's just understanding, you know, our biology is kind of like, I kind of see us like as like our body is as like a machine, right? Mm-hmm. Like to understand how to maintain the machine, how to fix the machine, you have to study it. Mm-hmm. You have to understand it in and out. And like that to me is like the biggest part. And I think, again, like testing is a big part of that.
I have a question. How much does alcohol influence your biological age?
A lot.
I think I asked you this when we were running.
Yeah, a lot.
Because we went running a while ago, and I had asked Hylan, I'm like, your skin is so nice. Like, do you get Botox or anything? And what did you do? And she's like, the one thing is I stopped drinking alcohol. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
I don't know if I can. Like,
I stopped drinking since I was 27. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm like 37 now. So it's been 10 years. It is not easy because of just like the social structure that we've had, like, you know, embedded in our cultures. Like drinking is like a very acceptable way to bond and connect with other people, and it's sometimes like expected, right? And especially when you're young, and then of course that bleeds into adulthood. But alcohol causes a lot of inflammation inside the body, and the big part of aging is, you know, anti-aging is reducing inflammation within the body, because like I said, your body is like a machine. You want to be able to optimize it. Like imagine it's like a car, right? You want to put good oil into the engine, right? You want to put good gasoline, quality gasoline in the engine. You don't want it to have to work so hard to get rid of it and then build up gunk inside the engine. It's the same thing with the human body. Inflammation is like that gunk that builds up over time that your body can't get rid of. So the more you reduce inflammation, the better you will age.
Damn, I guess I'm just going to be inflamed for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and it's self-induced, right?
I try, yeah.
And alcohol is self-induced, yeah. Right? It's like, and what I think in terms of my like tip in terms of like, you know, reducing alcohol intake or just removing it completely out from your life is just really ask yourself, why do you drink? Really ask yourself, sit with yourself and ask yourself, why do I feel the need to drink?
My kids. My job.
I know. I mean, to me, drinking was fun. It was very social. It relieved stress.
Yeah, like what Hylan says.
To bond.
Yeah.
It was a way to bond because it is an acceptable social activity. Okay. So there was a lot of reasons, and I think both Liza and Irene can attest. I drank quite a bit, but just probably in the last year and a half, I've like really like to the point where I'm like, no. And I think it goes back to everything that you're saying. I wouldn't necessarily say it's discounted. I do feel like it's very logical, right? It has reason to it. And so like for me, yep, it all makes sense. At the end of the day, it really comes down to you and what level of discipline and commitment that you want to establish, right? Yeah. Right. So because you can take all these tests, but if you're not committed to saying like, yes, I'm going to actually change, because it's a lifestyle change.
Well, here's what the second question that you should ask yourself is like, so you identify the things that you get when you drink. And I can relate to the whole drinking and socials. I used to party a lot. Okay. I quit when I was 27. And I quit after a weekend of binge drinking and partying in LA with my friends till like 4 or 5 in the morning every night.
Sounds like a good
okay.
Time.
So I understand the whole social aspect. I understand the fun in drinking, but like I said, I really asked myself, why do I drink? That's the first question. And really ask the second question is like, how does drinking make me feel afterwards? And the third question is, can I obtain all those things that I think alcohol gives me without alcohol? And it's kind of like a soul searching type of exercise that doesn't get accomplished overnight, right? But you really have to kind of ask yourself, can I have all those things without alcohol? Because I know I decided to quit because I just felt so terrible.
And I'll tell you, that was the reason why. No, that's the reason why I quit.
Yeah, I just felt so terrible.
But now I still do drink, but it's very rare, and maybe a shot here, a drink there. But I just did not like the feeling anymore, and I think part of it was my reaction time to bouncing back.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, it was no problem. Like, okay, you
can work
ready
the
to
next
go.
day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I'm like, dude, this wiped me out the full day.
Yeah.
Like there's no,
Exactly.
like you could not pay me enough to do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it was the realization like, no, this is done. I'm like done. My body can't handle it. I don't want it. I don't like this feeling. And I just stopped.
Yeah, and then you have to ask yourself, right? I mean, there are always, again, incentives for drinking in terms of like bond and like just the social aspects of it. But like I said, I mean, I was in my 20s when most people in their 20s are big parties, and I was still going out with my friends, and I basically had to really fight against the social pressure of drinking, and then also identify like, how do I still feel like I fit in, and then where is this feeling of not fitting in with drinking come from, right? And then to be quite honest with you, like that whole exercise, I feel makes me become a more independent thinker, because I'm no longer succumbing to like social pressure. But then I also like realize I don't need to derive like pleasure or like the social aspects from drinking. So I actually became more confident, to be quite honest with you, in social situations, because I stopped drinking, and I was able to like not have to use like alcohol as a lubricant or like the clutch to like get mingling
Liquid
with
courage.
other people. Mingle with other people, and then to kind of vibe with them. Right. So, and like I said, I don't drink anymore. In like, I've met a lot of people who are just like, wow, you're so social. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. No, so going back to the biological aging, if I wanted to start today, what would you recommend I would focus on first?
Yeah, I recommend your diet and nutrition as the key, right? Like I said, I think that's the biggest part of my philosophy in terms of anti-aging is what you put in your body, and your environment is the second. And then the third is your mental health. So there is a huge link between, the mind and body. And so I think that focusing not just on what you're putting inside your body, but also like what you're thinking throughout the day and at night, and how you kind of see the world.
Got it.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know. I can like, this is something, if you were to talk to me about like months ago, I would not be interested in. But I think talking to Hylan about it, it makes me want to learn more about it.
Well, I definitely can see your passion in it. And I think like with anybody who has passion, right? And you listen to that and you like, oh, and you may not necessarily say like, oh yeah, I'm ready to get there, but it does pique your interest to say, oh, now I learned a little something, and let's see what that takes me, because now you just, it's something that you
Here's what I also want to add to what I just said, is that the whole idea about this whole health and fitness journey and anti-aging is, that gunk and the inflammation or whatever, you can just summarize it as like stressors. So there's physical and psychological stress. So how do you limit the physical and psychological stress? But how I want to sell it on is that by limiting just the physical and mental stress and psychological stress on your body, guess what? You're just going to be happier and better. You're going to enjoy life more than you think. So as you start your journey, I know it's like the discipline might deter some people, but really think if you could be like 10% happier every single month you start on this journey, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
What's your physical regimen? You need to stretch with flexibility, endurance, and strength, right?
Yeah. So the last few months I've been, falling off my physical discipline stuff because, you know, I'm working on my business. And so sometimes you have to sacrifice. I'm not saying you have to basically do this every single day, but it is important for you to sustain a good pattern throughout your life, right? Like some days in some months I would skip my vitamins for like most of the week or like half of the month or something like that. Things happen in life. It's not being perfect when it comes to like your regimen and things like that. But I'll tell you, like, since I started this journey when I was 18, right? The predominant pattern has been, so I take my vitamins daily. So I have like a day stack and I have a nighttime stack, right? And
so do you take 20, like 10 in the morning and 10 at night, or do you take 20?
Around that.
Okay. So you take 20 total a day.
Yeah, okay. Around that. And then what I do is also cardiovascular like exercise. So for a long time, I run like about 15 or 20 miles a week, right? You don't have to do that. And then for I would say like since I was 30, so the last 7 years, I've actually transitioned from running to cycling, indoor cycling, which is also a cardiovascular exercise, but it doesn't have nearly as much impact. And then the last few months, I've been doing more like slower type forms of exercise, like walking. And I actually, like the last few years, I actually started that. And so I walk a lot. So it doesn't really matter like what kind of exercise, as long as you stay active. I think staying active is a huge like factor in terms of aging, and cardiovascular exercise is also, and I want to also add in a little tidbit on the cardiovascular exercise is that, again, I've studied this for a long, long time. I've looked at research and you can look this up as well, but cardiovascular exercises like cycling and running, right? What happens over time is that helps sustain your human growth hormone, and human growth hormone declines as you age. And human growth hormone it fuels everything from like your energy, your ability to, again, have like cellular repair within the body and things like that, and is highly correlated with aging. And so I learned this when I actually started running, right? I learned this like very, very young. And so I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so that became like a core pillar in how I like operate my life and my habits and things like that. The second is like your environment. So understanding like the pollutants within your environment and avoiding that. I always have like an air filter in my room and in my living room. People are now starting to talk about it, but avoid products, especially personal care products like lotion, shampoo, and say detergent, things like that, to limit toxins like parabens, phthalates, preservatives, and especially makeup, right? Because anything that goes directly into your skin, most people don't realize is your skin is an organ. It absorbs everything. So that's a huge factor. And I think the other thing I didn't get to talk about much like so far here is the psychological aspect. So I started meditating when I was like 24. So meditation for me has been a huge change, which I would say probably make up for, I think, 50% of my, results. And like the things that the biggest difference in my life is because, like I said, stressors, right? You could have a totally fit body, have a great regimen, but if you're constantly psychologically like stressing out and catastrophizing your life or things that happen, and you have no way to manage your stress, that will trigger your immune system, and that will cause internal stress within your body and inflammation within your body. It's like a self-induced inflammation. And so I think that's a huge part. And I think like happier people age better, and there's also a lot of research around that. So yeah, I wanted to just summarize that there.
Yeah, I ditto on that, on the meditation, because that's something that I started doing a couple of years ago, and
I find that really hard.
So you mean with the shampoo, detergent, makeup, not to use them, but lotion. Use the ones without the parabens,
phthalates, preservatives. A lot of preservatives are very, very toxic.
Same thing with deodorant, like natural deodorants without
aluminum,
parabens,
things like that.
Yeah.
The meditation for me is, I totally believe in that.
You have to practice it.
I have too many things in my head.
Debbie, that's me. Trust me, you have to. It's something that doesn't happen overnight. And I've been meditating for a year already, and I still struggle with it, but I'm so much better because you have to do it every day.
I feel like my meditation happens when I'm like Netflix, when I'm watching a movie. Like, no, like it just, because then it kind of like puts everything away. And so like I'm very focused. And I think that's why sometimes these reality shows pull you in, because they're like really nonsense stuff. And so you don't have to really think. Like I noticed I don't really like a quiet room. I like to hear noise in the background. And so I don't know. But I mean, for me to have actually silence for a long period of time is just like, no.
I don't think you need silence per se to actually meditate. I think a lot of people think that. I think it's the way that you tune things out and separate it.
For me, meditation is not even just tuning things out. It's the ability to separate yourself from your thoughts and the environment. So it's understanding that you are not your thoughts. You are not the things that happen to you. You are not your environment. Mm-hmm. You are your own person. And I think that's why it's so important, right? It's like we get very attached to our thoughts, the things that happen to us, the things people say to us. And like I said, that are all stressors. So the whole idea is to, how do you just reduce stress? And meditation, I don't want to go spiritual on you, but it's about like, you know, at the end of the day, cultivating a sense of self-love and also understanding like the self, and the self detached from, you know, how you look like, your friends, your social circle, your relationships, the things outside, right? And the things that are perceived as you, like, and understanding that. So I know it is hard. I know it's very hard, and it's like it's just like everything, right? Of course, everything is hard. Like working out is hard, you know. Going for a walk is hard, you know. Going to work is hard.
I mean, getting yourself out of bed, it's hard.
But, and you know, we're not taught the good things, right? Like the good habits. And so when we do start it, we start at such a much later age than I personally feel we should, right? So it's harder to learn these things when you're a lot older because it's not ingrained in your daily habits. But I really do believe that as you do these things, it does get a lot easier and a lot better. And like I said, you know, if once you start exercising, for example, right, you start to realize, oh, it's like makes me feel so good, and you get this feeling of like energy and this excitement. And then what do? You get actually kind of addicted to going to the gym, or it just becomes something that you really like look forward to. And I personally think that when you actually start to see the benefits of meditation, it's going to be the same, because I went through that journey myself.
Yeah. Well, Hylan, thank you so much for again sharing what your experience is and what you go through. It's really great for me to hear from somebody who has a passion in something. If anything, you know, a lot of people don't realize that these are things out there, but I do think that, you know, when people hear it, then you make a choice. And I think that's the best part of like what we do, right? Is you're bringing something to our listeners, and as the listeners, you now have a choice to do what you want with that information.
Right.
So I really appreciate you providing us a perspective and your passion.
Just sharing all your knowledge.
Yeah,
for sure.
Before we end, I just want to say that Brian Johnson didn't pay us anything for this podcast.
Yeah.
If you want to, we're open.
Yeah. Brian Johnson. Thank you, Hylan.
Thank you, Hylan.
Thank you.
I just want to shout out to Paul for making us this wonderful coffee.
Oh.
He's Irene's husband.
Yes.
He's an amazing barista. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.